Day 16, Part 2, Loaded Question and Strawman Fallacy. While Chris and Tina had been enjoying the Christmas wonder world the librarian painted with her lively and joyful stories, there was an eavesdropper on their conversation. Alan, a haughty bully who was 2 years their senior in school. Despite his size, confidence, and reputation for intelligence, Chris had defeated him in a school math competition a few months ago, and Alan was definitely not over it. So when Tina and Chris trudged out of the cafe full of joy and delight, the librarian had given them each a small gift they were curious to unpack. They could feel it was a book after all. What else would a librarian give them? Alan stepped into their path and stopped them. "Are you really honestly so stupid and naive to believe in Santa?" he sneered at Chris. "So basically you believe in the Easter Bunny, Harry Potter, the Tooth Fairy, and whenever someone concocts a supernatural explanation for something and establishes a tradition around it, you automatically believe it to be true? I knew you weren't the brightest kid, but this shows how stupid you really are." Chris was dumbfounded and struggled to find the right words. He felt ashamed. He wanted to explain and justify how his quest and doubt to prove he was intelligent, to perhaps even deny his belief in Santa. However, he found himself at a loss on how to start. There appeared to be no ideal response. Tina, on the other hand, found her words quickly. She stood up straight and tried to look down on Alan, which proved impossible as he was 15 centimeters taller. But even so, she assumed her most haughty pose and adopted a lofty tone and began. "And what if he does? What is that to you? And since when is believing in something equivalent to being stupid? There's no logical connection between the two. That just shows how stupid you are. Chris can tackle math problems that you can't even comprehend, despite being 2 classes ahead of us. Just leave us alone and perhaps focus on studying for your next math test." Alan's face flushed red. "You bitch, I believed, especially after hearing that you debunked the Santa myth, that you were enlightened. We were even considering inviting you to our exclusive club of intellectual elites. I had my doubts, but the others were genuinely impressed. Clearly we were mistaken. It appears you don't have a clear sense of your thoughts and desires after all. Typical girl, governed only by impulses and emotions." With that he turned on his heel and stormed off. Chris stood there silently, all the Christmas lightness and joy replaced by cold shame, until Tina turned to him. "Come on, let's go to my place to see what is in the presents we just got. Don't let that idiot take away our Christmas spirit." Chris was touched by the way Tina defended him, especially considering she didn't share his belief in Santa. She didn't hesitate for a second, even though Chris suspected she had wanted to be selected for this secret society Alan had mentioned. But now she seemed completely unbothered and content as she cheerfully skipped along beside him. When he asked her if she didn't mind, she laughed and responded, "Oh, come on. There is no question about it. In that situation, it was right to defend you, and damn the consequences. Besides, if someone like Alan is admitted to the club, it can hardly be considered an elite group. And if that is the way they think and act, just bullying people and trying to manipulate them and make them feel bad, then that's not the right place for me." And after unpacking their presents from the librarian, which turned out to be 2 books on critical thinking for kids, and playing a bit after Tina's bold words, Chris couldn't help but be recaptured by the Christmas spirit of joy and hope. Loaded question. Complex question fallacy. A tactic known as loaded questions is a form of manipulation that is often used to establish an argument as absolute by asking a question in a way that pressures the person being questioned to confirm the assumption of the person asking the question. "Have you stopped beating your wife?" This question implies that the client has a history of domestic violence. Regardless of whether this is true, any answer to this question, whether yes or no, would effectively be admitting guilt. A strawman fallacy is when someone creates a false version of an argument and then refutes it, giving the impression that they have disproved the actual argument. The fallacy of setting up a phony, weak, extreme, or ridiculous parody of an opponent's argument, and then proceeding to knock it down or reduce it to absurdity with a rhetorical wave of the head.